My question is, so I'm new to all of this and I'm very like curious and open about it, right? And I'm curious like how might I discover my guides?
Mm.
You know,
So guides specifically, not Akashic records, right?
is it are they kind of the same or different?
I would actually have to really ask them.
Okay.
Okay, what do you want to say to this? Are you guys the Akashic records? What's the deal here? Are you the same, the different? What do you want to say to this? Okay, so they're talking about how we all have our personal guides, and then there's guides within the Akashic records. And both come in together in Akashic record readings. So in Akashic record readings, it's both personal guides and the Akashic record guides. Okay. They're even talking about how sometimes the Akashic record guides will come in when you're not even intending to specifically connect with the records. You're just trying to connect with your personal guides. Sometimes some of that wisdom will still come in, but it's not as much as it comes in when you are intentionally tapping into the Akashic records. So, do you want to ask about connecting with your personal guides?
Yes.
Okay. And you want to know how to go about starting to connect with them?
Yes.
Okay. What do you want to say to that? How can she start to connect with her personal guides? Okay, and they're saying anyone can do this. Okay, they're talking about taking time to somatically feel your heart, spending time here. Like they're even showing like for me, putting my hand on my heart helps me because it helps reorient more of my energy to that area in my body, to my heart space. And then just saying, I wish to connect with my guides. And then they're saying, pause and wait. If nothing comes, that's okay. If you want, you can give it 5 or 10 minutes of sitting in your heart after you've asked that question, sitting in your heart and asking that question. Give it 5 or 10 minutes. And if anything comes through, write it down. They're talking about how anything that comes through, write it down. You don't have to worry about whether it's your parts or your guides, just write it down and then close the notebook and go on with your day. Okay, and now they're talking about because they're going to come back to this notebook and explain that, but they're talking about going out into nature in a place where you feel connected to something greater than you and out loud asking, I say this again. I am asking to have a direct connection with my guides. Just say it out loud and then wait for it to happen. And they're saying it may take time. It depends on the person and their parts. Okay, now again, they're coming back to this notebook and they're talking about like so you had this page here from the last time and you wrote down what it was. And what I see in this notebook, it isn't a whole lot that was written down. And it just filled up maybe a third of this page on the left. But now it's another day, whether it's the next day or a week later or a month later, whenever it is that you decide to do it again, you've turned the page fully, so you can't even see what you had written the previous time. there's something about leaving it and then doing it again and then writing whatever you get that time. And again, they're even showing like this time you've turned the page so that way it's on two blank pages and you've bookmarked that so you don't go back and see what you had previously written. Okay, what do you want to say about this? And then, like a week, a month, 3 months later, whenever you feel curious about it, whenever you've forgotten, like you've completely forgotten what it was that came through or what it was that you asked about, because you can ask questions too. Um, they're talking about starting off with listening first. And then as time goes on, you can ask questions. And again, just writing down whatever it is, even if you're convinced that it's total bullshit, just write it down, right? And again, when you've forgotten about it, when you go, I can't even remember what it was that came through or what it was that I asked about. Like, I can't remember for the life of me. You're saying go back to it. When you feel open, they're talking about when your skeptical parts are there, but they're not strong, right? They're not strong, skeptical, doubting parts. There's enough curiosity. It feels like there's enough curiosity to go back and look at it with fresher eyes. And then you can go back and read what was written and then just note to yourself what do I notice about this? Does this sound like something I would say? Does this sound like something I would write? They're talking about does it have that protector language of like should and must and do as opposed to want and be and like kindness and unconditional love and gentleness and a deep honoring of who you are and just kind of notice how it lands for you. Also noticing, does this feel true, like a deeper truth, not like a logical mind truth. And then they're talking about circling what feels deeply true. They're talking about like you don't have to cross out anything that you're not sure about. Just circle what feels deeply true for you. And then they're saying write the date off to the side around that circle, off to the side of that circle of like that's when, okay, I went back and read this and I felt that was deeply true. And then again, they're showing like giving time before you go back to another one. So there's something about doing them one at a time. It allows parts to settle around it, questioning parts, doubting parts. They're polarized parts, like parts that really want connection, parts that are afraid of connection or don't trust connection. They're talking about how we all have so many parts that come up around this stuff because these are just the waters we have swam in. There are so few people that swam in waters where this was normalized and accepted from birth. And they're saying even those people are still carrying stuff because the stuff is just in the waters of the air we breathe, if that makes sense. It's just so much stuff, cultural, ancestral stuff that is just everywhere. So we all have these parts to some degree or another. And they're talking about sometimes some of these parts are shoved down and quiet, but they're still there. They're still there. And they're talking about how it's about the discernment. And they're saying you don't have to trust everything that comes through. Trust what feels safe to trust. Trust what feels right to trust. Let the rest go if it doesn't feel right. And they're saying how your guides are always there with you. They're talking about all of us. Our guides are always here with us, whether we have a direct connection or not. This is a way of gaining a more direct connection. And they're saying one of many. They're saying by all means, find another method if that works for you. Whatever method feels right to you, go with that. Period. End of story. Go with that. They're saying you are all always connected. Always, 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 always. There's never a moment that we are not connected. I mean, they are talking about people who have this huge barrier around them, and there is little to no direct guidance coming in. I mean, it's just huge, enormous barriers. And even in those cases, what I see is like, okay, so a guide is coming into someone else and saying, hey, bring this thing to this person or give this experience to this person. It's like they are always there supporting us in whatever way we will allow them to support us. And again, it's not always conscious. It's often, the subconscious stuff, our parts that don't, we can have parts that desperately want to connect directly with the guides and have no idea that they're actually contributing to the difficulty of why they're not connecting, because there's all these other hidden parts that we're not even aware of. Again, they're coming back to doing it in whatever way feels right to you. And again, they're coming back to the taking what feels right and what feels true. And they're saying you don't have to throw away the rest. You can come back to it another time, even 2 or 3 years later, because you might find out that this one thing that you really doubted, now it makes perfect sense. And then it turns out like you've got like day 6, right? The 6th day that you did this, and you're coming back to it 3 years later, and you're reading this whole thing, and now you have this deeper, clearer, more direct connection. And as you're reading it, it doesn't just all resonate fully as true within your system, but you've got the clarity and the knowing of 1,000% each and every single one of these words was not from me. It was not from me. It was from my guides. And it's like you're astounded at how tapped in you were back then, but you had circled like a half a sentence is true when you had last looked at it 3 months after. Because now you have so much more clarity that you didn't have then, and you're just absolutely astounded and proud of yourself, because it isn't yes, it's about connecting directly with them, but it's also about trusting that we can, and trusting when it really is from them, and trusting that we can discern that we can recognize that we can have the clarity on that. And they're just talking about it being a growth process. And it's like this whole process, the long-term process of doing this work. It's kind of goes both ways. They're showing like how having this connection results in healing. It results in healing within us just by having this connection. There's often subtle healing that just comes along with the energy. But then they're also talking about how many of us, if we have this doubting part, or we have this part that says that's crap. That's yeah, I clearly made that up. Well, maybe that part gets really, really loud and it starts to, create a lot of havoc in the system. And then the rest of the system's like, okay, we got to do something about this. So then you take it to your own IFS practitioner or therapist, or maybe just in your own work within yourself, and you connect with that part, and maybe you do some healing for that part or the part that it protects, however it is. And so, yeah, sometimes the healing just comes as process of doing this. And sometimes the healing is part of the process of working through what it ruffles, what it stirs up within us, or what maybe is preventing it from coming through with more clarity. Okay, they're pausing there.